For us to be able to find ourselves in that which is called the new Aurora, we would have to recap which is the role of the planetary spiritual hierarchy, and also see a little bit about another government of the world which seemingly controls the world. We say seemingly because these forces, which are involutionary but which are very organized, control the three-dimensional levels. They control the etherical, physical, the astral, the emotional, and the mental. And beyond the mental begins the action of the spiritual government of the planetary hierarchy. So that which we call the new Aurora is also this awakening of ours to the higher planes in such a way that we may manage to perceive the difference here on earth of that which belongs to the evolutionary plan and that which is accompanied and developed by the spiritual hierarchy, and that which is this material government of the world, this government of the evolutionary forces. And if we don't have a clearer idea of what this apparent government works is, but which works a lot and acts a lot, while we don't have a relatively clear idea regarding this, we cannot find ourselves well, and we could be deluded by certain movements of forces, certain ideological waves, etc. The spiritual hierarchy, this true government of the world, this internal government, has never denied its own existence. And although the hierarchy does not make manifests, does not make advertisement, it acts through some representatives here on the physical plane. The spiritual hierarchy does not have secret societies, it doesn't have anything hidden, but from time to time they have a messenger, someone, a being who has been sent, who very clearly behaves and manifests laws, or who manifests teachings which are adequate for each time, for each epoch. This spiritual hierarchy, this hierarchy of light, which from time to time sends a representative to the physical plane, this hierarchy basically here on the surface of the earth works so that the peoples or the nations, people may remain united. So the hierarchy here on earth works for this, through representatives that they send from time to time who try to build this unity. So every time it is about disuniting peoples, every time it is about a nation not getting along with another, or every time it is about people not getting along with each other, this is not under the light of the spiritual hierarchy. Do you understand? So you see that the other one is very well installed here on the three-dimensional planes. And something else that the spiritual hierarchy values is the creative work, a work that is within the evolutionary plan. So if there is a movement, a work, a company, a government that is not creative, that is destructive, this is not going through under the action of the planetary spiritual hierarchy. Everything that is destructive is not in this hierarchy, it is in the other one. And the spiritual planetary hierarchy, besides taking care of unity, besides valuing creative, constructive work rather than destructive work, this hierarchy here on earth seeks to elevate the consciousness and not diminish the consciousness or despise the consciousness. So everything that does not elevate the consciousness, everything that does not expand the consciousness, everything that does not allow the consciousness to grow, this does not belong to the spiritual hierarchy, this belongs to the other one. In the spiritual hierarchy, a desire and a will does not exist to be imposed. The spiritual hierarchy does not have a personal will to be imposed. The spiritual hierarchy tries to organize things, present things, and develop things according to that which belongs to the law of matter, because we are in a material world, the law of matter, or the law on different planes of existence. So that which is outside of the law, the material law, or of some plane of existence, everything that is disorder regarding the law, or that which is a denial of a certain law that is already known, this is not under the spiritual hierarchy. This is under the other hierarchy. So basically, the differences are these. And this other hierarchy is also called forces of evil or brotherhood of evil, etc. But this is a very organized hierarchy, very rooted hierarchy. And within the evolutionary plan, this has its action field, because the purpose is not that this hierarchy called the hierarchy of evil may remain like this forever. We don't know how long it will be like this, but the purpose is not for it to remain like this forever. The purpose is for it to be recovered, for it to be transformed into the other one. But this, you can imagine how long will pass and how many millions of turns the earth will take before this happens. We have seen that the unity of peoples, the union, the valorization of creative work, and the evolution of consciousness is the work of the hierarchy of light. And the thought of October 28th says the following: no limitation lasts forever. No impediment to the manifestation of unity persists. So, however this situation may last, it will end one day. Even why the planets must be resolved, the solar systems must be resolved, and the whole universe must be resolved in such a way that unity, valorization of creative work, and elevation of consciousness are things that are always alive and within the plan. We wouldn't have to occupy ourselves so much of the difficulties. and the current situation. The current situation is only for us to become aware, but do the work. And someone asks very specifically, considering the situation, how to leave it individually and how to leave it grouply. Well, we know about the existence of other planes of consciousness beyond these three-dimensional levels, which are very compromised on the planet Earth. We would have to transcend certain laws of space and time to be able to be more comfortable in this other time, this other space, these transcendental levels, because beyond the mind, this space and this time do not exist just as we experience them here. So this sense of hurry, this sense that everything is very slow, that it should be faster, this is a circumstance of this space and this time in which we live. This should be transcended so that we may be a more adequate consciousness for our inner being now. The extraterrestrial and intraterrestrial vessels dominate the laws of this other space and this other time. And when we are in contact, when we see an extraterrestrial or intraterrestrial vessel, they are showing us that another space and another time exist. Otherwise, probably some certain materialized vessels will not be able to come here. If the concept of space and time were the same, a vessel that comes from a different galaxy would last billions of years to come here, to get here. But this only happens through our mind. This of billions of years does not exist, and it doesn't exist. A distance between this and another galaxy doesn't exist. This only exists in our human mind. So this space in which we move and this time in which we exist, this is not like this, beyond the mental plane. And when we cross the space, this material space, we would have to learn how to do this without causing disharmony. We should not, for example, change our concept of space while our airplanes, while our machines pollute this space. Do you understand? While we use machines that disharmonize the space, that we cannot make progresses regarding our experience of other dimensions of the space and the internal space, for example. But then you could ask, but how would we be without these vehicles? We have a vehicle, which is the mind, capable of telepathy. We have soul vehicles, monad spaces, which reach whatever is necessary without crossing the material space through their own ways, as we know. If we were using our minds, our souls, for these contacts, we would be in contact, in a conscious contact with something that is called energy of the universe. The energy of the universe is an energy that does not pollute. It's not a material energy. In this energy of the universe, we are very comfortable and we move, but in our subtle bodies, in our internal bodies. So our subtle bodies begin to enter a different space, a different time. We would have to have the intention, we would have to have the will, the desire to enter these things. The thing is that our will, our attention, our desires are conditioned to things that are of secondary importance. We occupy ourselves with things that are not important at all within eternity, and our material time, our space in life is all occupied with things that I don't say secondary, but I would say tertiary, the last things. They should be the last things, and we only occupy ourselves with this. So then our subtle bodies or our internal being eventually goes through this other space, this other time, and our physical consciousness does not become aware of this. The energy of the universe, which is an energy that we know as God, but who has the experience of God? Who has the experience with this energy? Who has experienced this, one or another? But who has gone into this energy and has made incursions into higher life? Some beings have done it, but not everyone. For this field to be open, for us to perceive these things, and for us to gradually have the possibility to enter these scopes in practically, we would have to abolish aggressiveness. This is very important, and everyone can understand this, because you can be powerful, you can be energetic, you can be positive, you can even use your strength as long as you are not aggressive. Who knows how to use strength without being aggressive? Who knows how to destruct without being aggressive? So aggressiveness is a human quality that we would have to restore. So while we have aggressiveness, all of this is closed, and there are beings who even experience these things. They experience these things in dreams or with their own imagination. That is, they can be prepared for this, but they do not manage to put this into practice in their day-to-day due to aggressiveness. So, with clearness, we can reflect about aggressiveness and see where we have to eliminate this from, and we have to learn to use force, power, strength, power, use all of this that God has given us for us to use, but without aggressiveness, which is completely different. So while aggressiveness is a system among us, all these dimensions of time and space remain closed. All of this remain as a theory. Oftentimes, our imagination or our dreams or even one or another experience lead us to places or situations that are not very usual. But when we perceive that we are in a situation that is not usual, which is strange, we have a fear of being treated as sick people, as being treated as abnormal people, and we try to go back to normality. And normality is this mediocrity that you know. So every impulse that the inner being gives to come out of normality, is not enter normality. Normality, it's not to be abnormal. It's to come out of that which is normal, to be something different, to enter a different level. And this, it's necessary that we are willing to do it, to enter into the knowledge of these other things of space and time. The consciousness can move to more or less profound levels, and many internal energies can flourish to lead our human consciousness to this. And this attunement, this contact, happens within ourselves. It's not by studying science or watching science programs. It is an inner contact. This takes place within yourselves. And if this begins to take place within yourselves, this contact, you will no longer believe in the science programs just as they are taught. So this attunement, the attunement with this takes place on the inner planes of the being. And it is on the inner planes of the being, in our inner nuclei, that we gradually take this path. Also, being awake, we can go through these experiences. We don't need to be sleeping. We don't need to be dreaming or only idealizing. Perhaps unexpectedly, suddenly, without your even realizing, you could be in contact with these things. You could be in this situation. And when you perceive that you are in the situation that you did not foresee, that you do not provoke, that you did not desire at that hour, because all of this movement, provocation, desire, all of this is contrary for these things to take place. These things happen in silence. They happen when you are not expecting, when you are very conscious. You work for this, you look for this, you seek this, but this happens when you have forgotten all of this. You see how the other space is different. In this space, you gradually work and work and work, and then suddenly something happens. In the other space, things happen and you experience them without working, without doing anything. In this other space and this other time, it is about in this life that we are, it is about our not being tied, not being based only on the sequence of facts. Because oftentimes, to understand one thing or to reach a certain conclusion, we begin to put facts in order, isn't it? For example, why is he sick? Our tendency is to say, he's sick because he has drunk, because he didn't sleep well, because he smoked. This is how it happens. You put everything in chronological order. Lack of food, of sleep, excess of work. It's equal being sick. And he's not sick for this. Nothing of this. Do you understand? So it's useless to put facts in order to get a conclusion. Facts have to be in order because here in the space, things are within certain laws of the physical order. But your consciousness must not be in this physical order. Your consciousness must be free of this order, because in your consciousness, you could be healed without going through any process of healing. Within your consciousness, there could be a healing without your even seeing a doctor, without doing any treatment. It is a different time, a different space, other measurements. And if we are tied to chronological things, we lose this dimension. For example, if they ask us, how old are you? You put 1 year after the other since you incarnated, and you say, I am this year old. Is this your age? But does your soul count years like this? Do years, the centuries, days exist for your soul? So when they ask, what is your age? How are you going to answer this? Are you going to answer like everyone else? So you see, this is why you don't enter the other time. Even if even age is counted by the material years that have passed and not by a process of inner maturing that is not external. So while you don't consider these other dimensions in your own current life, we don't have any condition to be like a space vessel, an extraterrestrial vessel, or an intraterrestrial vessel. So beyond this freedom that we have to have regarding chronology of facts, we have to become free of this, that I am in this situation because I did this and that I made a mistake here, I got it right here. No, you are in this situation for other reasons that you do not know. With everything you have done and you have not done, it has nothing to do with this. It has to do with within a certain point of view, but not in reality, because your situation now is not only what you have done or what you have not done. Your situation now is the result of what others have done also, of what humanity has done or not has done. Your situation now, it's also a result of the planetary consciousness, which is in a certain development and not another. So we would have to leave this individuality, we would have to leave this limited center, which is this human ego, which is this human life, this physical life, and enter a different dimension. And beyond, besides putting things in order when they need to be put in order due to material law, but our consciousness is not in this order. Our consciousness is in a different attunement, and it should not be limited in your consciousness. If you affirm the reason for things, this is something horrible against a free consciousness, because nothing has a reason, an explanation like this that we give. These explanations that we give to things is only useful in this material space and time, and within this human consciousness that has nothing of super consciousness. Any explanation that you give is always within these limits. So we would have to liberate, to become free, and not have to give explanations, not only to others, because for others to believe our explanations need to be very naive. But some people believe these explanations. But if you want to give an explanation for yourself, then you are limiting yourself, really. You're going to say, this is happening to me. And you say, what is the reason? And the mind will give you an explanation. Life will give you an explanation right away. You need to become free of this. This explanation is only useful for this current use here. Sometimes, but this is not an explanation for anything, because life and the things that truly happen, life itself does not have an explanation. You see how many philosophers got old, had their brains tired to define life. Is life defined? You can even open encyclopedias. You can find many things, but life is not defined. This has no definition. Now, for you to enter this other thing, you need to become free of this chronology. You need to stop thinking that someone is young. You have to stop thinking that someone is old. All these things that we believe, based on things that have nothing to do with a higher plane of consciousness, with reality after this material mind. Now, besides our becoming free of this chronology and all these explanations, we would have to keep ourselves on the level of our aspiration, because we have a level of aspiration, we have a level of desire for these higher things, and we have to keep this level, we have to keep ourselves in that level. We should not come down from this level of aspiration, even if our hands and our bodies, our intelligence, our intellect, our mind, our personality is occupying itself with things that have not much to do with this aspiration. This is supposed to do within a certain order, but we should not forget our own aspiration. Within any action, you don't need to forget your aspiration. Within a concrete fact, within a situation of facts, within a circumstance, whatever it is, your aspiration, your most elevated aspiration should be remembered at that moment. That aspiration should be present there, even if it's not applicable at that moment, even if there is no means to apply it, because the means do not always exist, even if there are no conditions for you to realize that which you are aspiring for. But the fact that it's not carried out, if it's not possible within certain laws, this does not mean that you should stop aspiring for. You should always have not only not stop aspiring for, but also always having this always in mind. That which is the own essence of your being, that which is the very purpose of your life. This has to be present, even in a life like the life on the surface of the earth, which is organized in a different way, organized even through heredity. What does heredity means? Hereditarily means something material. When you say that things here are hereditary, these are material genes. This is a material law, the law of heredity, hereditarity. So if you were born in a certain physical way through hereditarity, this is a material law, this is not yourself. Even that which you are heir of, even that which is part of your being today, but it's not yours, nothing of this should be an obstacle to your aspiration, for your aspiration to be present there. Even if you are heir of certain things, even if this hereditarity has a past, having been passed from generation to generation, reaching you, you should not take this into account more than a material fact, nothing else, because in the spirit there is no hereditarity. On the higher planes, this is inexistent. So, involved with all these things, we believe that it is extraordinary, that there is a extraterrestrial vessel or an intraterrestrial vessel, the way they move and are here. So those who study just think, but how can this have come from Saturn? Because from Saturn to here, how long do you take of this time of ours? This does not exist between here and Saturn. This could exist between the physical planets, if you consider the physical universe. But do you have to believe that you cannot reach Saturn because it takes so many millions of years to get there? You could be in Saturn now, and you should have this in your world, in your mind, not only in your inner world. This has to be brought to your mind. Your mind has to expand. Your mind has to leave these conventional patterns of a concrete mind. Your mind has to be free. Your mind has to be working, functioning, developing, living on other planes with lucidity. In the booklet of the thoughts on September 17th, it's written, "The school reserved to you goes beyond the limits of this planet and this solar system. Who knows your human mind, close to the mind that we could have before, close to the development that could be given to this mind." Now, revelations and all these things that we can experience, that we can live, because we don't experience something when we read them in the books, when the scientific discoveries were made and we came to know. We really experience things, we really know things when we live them. And these things that we experience because we live them are inside of an evolutionary plan. And this evolutionary plan is for everyone, all beings who are anywhere in the universe. Now, this is for everyone, but this follows the need of a time, of an epoch. Because imagine, if we discovered how to get quicker to Saturn, we would disharmonize the space much more than we are doing now, currently, just to start with. And we don't know what this contamination would be of earthly beings in Saturn. We wouldn't know the consequence of this. So all of this has its epoch. Everything that has not been carried out, everything that is not managed, everything you have not been able to get, has not happened because the moment hasn't come. Maybe for all of humanity, or maybe for the majority, or maybe just for the moment has come for some but not for others. What we would have to see also is that at the moment in which you become aware of a theory, or at the moment when you come to know about a piece of information, at the moment when something that you did not know reaches you, at that moment you welcome it, you register it, but you liberate that thing. Don't transform your consciousness, your being, into a scripture, into a scripture. Scripture means, in a certain sense, dead letter. Do you know, right? So do not transform your record into an accumulation of dead letters, accumulation of news, of pieces of information. Do not transform your life, your consciousness into a Bible, because it is not the dead letter that is worthy. It's not the volume. It is that which, throughout these millenniums, these thousands of years, someone assimilated and developed. So however interesting, useful, opportune, positive that this that you are receiving may be, it's part of this assimilation and this experience for you to receive, give thanks, assimilate, but become that, to be that. Because if you become that, you no longer need to listen to that. You no longer need to read that in any book. You no longer need Bibles. You no longer need this. So you see how important this new Aurora is, how important this new humanity is, how important this new consciousness how important it is for this new consciousness to be a little bit more than implanted, to be in development. So we need to learn to be in a different way, even within the positive things, because we don't know within a positive experience what this is going to lead us to. So before a positive experience, you should not be fixed into this experience. Otherwise, you're going to repeat this positive experience, and for you, it's going to be redundant. To remake even a positive experience, it is redundant. You have parked, you have become stagnant. And these beings of the surface, these mental beings of this time and space of this humanity, when they realize something positive, they want to eternize, to make this eternal. They don't want this to end, but this should end there. It shouldn't stop there. So if you have managed an order, a discipline, if you have managed to have a correct course of things, be careful so that this won't be static, so that this correction, this good course, good rhythm will not be crystallized there. Be careful so that this won't stop there. You have to release that which you have gotten of the best, not for you to be without anything, but for you to move on, for you to have a new experience. So you see how the schemes of our lives are completely opposed to all of this. How in this human life, this life on the surface of the earth, everything is in an order that we haven't managed to permeate this order, to transcend this order, to vivify this order, to place this order on a different plane, a different order. But for this, we would have to be looking at all this chronology with distrust, but also releasing, giving up, renouncing, because in our languages and in our consciousness, this word renounce exists, right? And this word renunciation is one of the most elevated words that exist. This word does not exist in any advanced consciousness. Why? Because you will only renounce that which you feel an honor is. So renunciation, renounce, is a consequence of feeling an honor of something, of being attached to something. If you do not allow time to walk, if you do not allow the space to be infinite, if you do not expand within this, you will have to renounce this. We will have to renounce things. Because if you don't leave this material time, and this material life, and this material consciousness, if you have not transcended this, you will be secure on many things, you will hold many things, so you will have to renounce. So you see how many superfluous situations, if you had not attached yourself, you would not have to renounce. So it's one word less in this vocabulary. This word, this noble word, because those who do not know how to renounce, do not know the ABC. So it's something noble to forget to know how to renounce. So you know, nobility is a consequence of a narrow in the beginning. When you enter a different dimension, a different level, when we go beyond this level of normal consciousness, when we begin to transcend this correct normality, this perfect order that we have managed to get, we grow in consciousness, and then we permeate the subtle levels. But while you are tied to this order, you do not permeate the subtle levels, because the subtle levels are in a different order. Better saying, the subtle levels are in an order that we don't know how to define. We don't have words to define them. We can only define this order. But the order of the universe, for example, we cannot define. Our words do not adhere to those situations. They do not adhere to that. So we have to transcend all of this in order to begin to permeate these subtle levels consciously, not only sleeping. But I say, but I rarely have this experience. I don't have this experience. I don't dream. Of course, you haven't gone beyond this material life that is very necessary. What would be of material life without order? We don't want to demolish any order. What we mean is that we shouldn't be tied to this order, because the order of the universe, the cosmic order, is different. In the order of the universe, Saturn is not far away. In the order of the universe, the star Sirius is not a place that is not dwelled. It's a different order, so our minds have to reach the limit of these conceptions so that afterwards they can be helped to transcend this stage. Because our minds, our known and human minds, can stop being like they are because they have other levels. But for they to stop being as they are, for you to use them in a different way, for them to no longer circumscribe you in certain mental laws, but open the door to other mental laws, you need to have these things in mind. You have to experience an order, live an order, which is an order within certain planes, but know that your order is not that your order is different. So you put everything correctly here, one thing after another. You add up things. This is in a civilization that even have machines to add things. So you see these minds. There are computers here, so you can imagine what point we are. Well, we have an internal space, we have an internal time for us to be helped to enter this, for us to be consciousness in this internal time and space. We have to look not only at our fellow beings, that is, human beings, but also look at other kingdoms of nature. Because other kingdoms of nature in a certain scale, in a certain sense, and to a certain point, can use our help or enjoy our collaboration. Look at the tree. As this tree develops, as this tree grows, you can see that it is looking for something. The material mind and science say that this tree is looking for light. They grow because they are looking for light. They grow because they are going toward the light of the sun, the sunlight. But this tree could be like us, tending to an internal space, but it's going upwards. Is it only being attracted by light, or is there a force within it that is pushing it towards an internal space, which, helped by light, it goes upwards? The path of our perfection, the path of the perfecting of a tree, the path of the improvement of an animal, mineral, this path of perfecting is not in this time and space, it is in the internal space. So it's useless for a tree to grow in height, to materially grow, if as plant life it does not permeate its inner space while it was growing, because it always also has an inner space. Because it is in the inner space, in the inner time, that the models for everything lie. So if you don't permeate this inner space, this inner time, if you don't grow inwards, you do not find your models, you do not find your references. And we all know all of this by studying spiritual philosophy. But with a tree, it's the same thing. If this tree grows and develops, it is trying to permeate its own inner space. So this has to be in mind. This has to be included when you treat that tree, when you treat that animal, or when you treat that mineral. So to take care of a human being, or take care of an animal, or take care of a plant, or take care of a mineral, it's not only this sense of taking care that we have in this time and this space. Because within this time, this material time and space, taking care of these things is a certain taking care of. But if you are going to take care for this to enter its own inner space, even the way you prune that plant is different. So you are not pruning a plant only for it to bear fruit. You are not treating an animal only for them to have health, or only for them to be domestic. You are doing this in the name of that which within the time and space, like we are, but in an internal space. So if you see a person, how can you help them? You should be comfortable. You should be free of many things of time and space regarding them. Otherwise, how are you going to help them? And you should also be free regarding yourself. So to prune a plant and a tree, anyone can learn this. But to prune a tree, helping that tree to permeate something which is its own internal world, this is a different way to prune. This is something else. So when you are before an individual, a plant, you are before an animal, you are before whatever it is, and you ask, what is the harmony of this? It's not to bear more fruit. It's not to have more health. What is the harmony of this? How is it going to be harmonious? As everything has to be harmonious, how is the perfection of this tree? So it's clear that this tree, that since it were small, emitted its branches to look for light, that it had many obstacles to do it. So a tree could even have a deformed shape, which is not its own, but it had to have that way because it had to look for light. So if you are treating that kingdom, you have to help this plant to enter its harmony, or you need to help to recover the harmony of this plant. You must help that human being to recover its own harmony, to recover its own balance, because then they are going to find their own shape. So you say, you cut a peach tree here so that it can bear peaches, but was the harmony of that being considered? Being pruned to bear fruit, is this the harmony of this tree? How is the harmony of this pruning? How are you really going to help a peach tree to become as harmonious as it should be? Because I don't know if these plants that we see are following their own harmony. Because this is so addicted to something, viced, that we don't know if they are following their harmony. One day someone said someone said there is all the plants of grassland are turned, have their shape. But is this their normal shape? In a certain sense, yes. You cannot deny this. If you go to grassland, you see plants like that, bending, twisted. So, but you shouldn't believe in this. So there is a work in the planetary consciousness so that the plants may not be twisted any longer, so that the grassland may find its shape of beauty, its shape of harmony. This grassland that is there could not be the way that had been foreseen for it. In the desert, I don't know if this was foreseen, if it was foreseen to be like this, or if this has a different pattern, or if it could have a different concept. So if you are going to take care of a human being, you should not come from the principle only that they are a human being, because what does being a human being means? A limited being, right? A physical, emotional, and mental being, a material being. But you shouldn't be tied to this. A tree, however you may know a lot about the plant kingdom, you shouldn't come from the principle that this tree is this, that this is the ideal, that this is the pattern for this tree. You have to help them. To help this, you are not going to get the tree and change their shape. This is impossible. In that incarnation, plant life could not manage to arrange, to improve this. But you should look for the essence of this in this very tree. You could be treating that with certain patterns and taking care in such a way that the plant kingdom, when it leaves that place, it's going to form a tree that is more within the foreseen pattern. So you have to collaborate in this way for everything. You should be before anything, however great it may be, knowing that it should be even better, more complete, more truthful, that it should correspond even more to a model for it. So how could we become attached to something? How can you be attached to something? How can you be attached to yourself? How can you keep this ego? How can you keep yourself attached to this? This has to constantly change. It has to be released, free, to form an evolutionary path. So you see that things in this space and time, you see how slow they are. It looked like those sculptures. How they have managed to create an engraved stone, a tombstone. So we really should shake all fixed concepts, all our defined concepts, all our established concepts. Otherwise, soon you're going to say, oh, I am 80 years old. Oh my God. When you should say, look, I have 80 light years. You see how simple this is? So this is a path. Now, you either break this or you try to break this. You either release, let go everything that is secure for you, everything that is correct for you, because it is correct. And all to you if it were not correct within certain laws, but we should not be limited to this. We should be in a lot of harmony, but even within this, we should look for the hidden things. We should be looking for that which we cannot see, that which is not known. But at the moment when you came to know it, do not become attached to this. You have come to know this and say, oh, was this? What else now? You are always walking. Well, you don't need to say that evolutionary forces have created a structure here in this life of the surface that practically we need to strangle things. So you need to break things that are strangled. We need to begin to perceive other levels, because then, although you are within a human body, you are not there totally. You are only there through a thread. And only by keeping yourself through a thread and having the greatest part of your consciousness on transcendent levels, only in this way you will truly collaborate in this evolution, raise all of this, expand all of this. Otherwise, you're going to confirm all of this in things that are a pattern. All of this that is since you were born. Since Noah was born, it was like this, and you continue to confirm this. Do you understand? It should not be like this within the consciousness. This has to be like that due to a certain material order that does not change if you don't change the plane of consciousness, if you do not become free of this, if you do not do as if it were a game, but at the same time doing something else. Otherwise, there is no way to transform. Well, we have heard about that new genetic code is being introduced. So we can speak of this very openly, because with the new genetic code, which is not taken from dinosaurs, you know that this genetic code of ours was taken from the dinosaurs. This is why we keep ourselves in this situation. You see that someone learns to do something and they do like this until their lives. Then, oh, I have learned how to cook a sweet. Then they are going to die doing the same thing. They haven't managed to become soft without eating sweets and candies. They haven't managed to do this. They make candies and they are candy makers. How can you say he's a philosopher, he's a teacher, he's a dentist? Are they? Do we need to be kept in this space and time? Do we need to be kept in this situation, in this limitation? Or at each moment could we be living something different? And we can have the notion and the guess, we can guess that we are living something else because something within us begins to ring a bell within us. And although you paint your hair, not even the hair, not even that managed that bell to be quiet. When this bell begins to ring, put your ear there. The ear begins to hear delicate things. The ear begins to get used to hear things that cannot be heard. Your inner ear begins to get used to this, and then you permeate this other time and space, and then you're going to live here as if you were not living. You're going to be in this world without belonging to this world. Why does this world must tie you? Why, if you are in this body, you should be this person? You should be changing things at each instant. Maybe if you have this intention, and if you are insistent, if you are concentrated, if you are asking for this to happen, if you are working for this to happen, maybe, where am I? You were there. But it was only for you to have the confirmation that this exists and that you can get there. And then you were placed here again, of course, because to be here, you would have to disincarnate or give your body to someone else, and you don't know if this is the destiny in this case. So maybe suddenly you were there. You say, oh, when you realize, that's it, you are placed here again. But you have had the confirmation. Some are placed there during their sleep through forces of inner mechanism, subjective mechanism, due to the characteristics of that being. So they are placed there during the sleep, and when they are placed here again, and when they wake up, the human consciousness did not know about anything. So you always need to be available and open, not to be like you are. You always need to be wishing to transform yourself so that these contacts may not be so fast, or they may not be so unconscious to the human mind, so that this may really come down to the consciousness, so that this may really be part of our normal consciousness. And in this new humanity, this is going to be much more developed. This is why humanity is going to be better. It won't be better because they have ended diseases or found the solution, the cure for a disease. It won't be better because you have food for everyone. It won't be better for anything that you can do here. This humanity will only become better when its consciousness enters these other planes, when it touches these other planes. And even if it comes back afterwards, things here will be transformed, will improve. Things here will improve, not due to the work, the apparent work here. The apparent work here is a matter of material order within time and space. Things here really develop when you touch other planes, when you begin to go to other planes. Otherwise, you are a good storyteller, a good writer, but always a storyteller, or a counter, always making good accounts for things that have been stolen, right? Because things don't exist for you to make account. And the person will ask in the next sharing, but I am a counter, I am an economist, what should I do? You see, the answer has been given to all these questions. Do not become attached to anything here. Have things here. But have things here much more than provisory, much more than ephemeral. You should have things here as things that are volatile, so that you can begin to improve the earth, so that you can do anything that can really go beyond this time and this material space. Because many things of the other time, many things of the other space, many things of the higher consciousness can be introduced here. Here, you don't need to be this stone, this engraved stone, the stone. So let us allow our consciousness to go up, to be volatile. Let us not be afraid to lose memory, to lose our feet from the earth, because you don't need this. You don't need to abandon things here. This is just a different dimension. This is a different time. This is a different space. This is a different plane. And we need to learn how to permeate this. We need to learn how to include this, so this won't be a cemetery, so this won't be a field of engraved stones.